Good afternoon and welcome back to Football League World TV. We have got an EFL transfer zone coming up for you in the next half an hour. Things really ramping up across the EFL with deadline day coming tomorrow. So much to talk about, so plenty to get through on this show. I'm your host, Alfie Burns, and I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague, Marcus Ali. Marcus, how are you getting on this afternoon?
Yeah, really well. Thanks, Alfie. Hard to take your eye off of Twitter and everything that's going on in the EFL at the moment. It really is getting manic as we build towards that deadline. I'm sure tomorrow's going to be very hectic. But no, glad to be on with lots to cover in today's show.
Yeah, feels like today is the dress rehearsal for the big one tomorrow. Plenty of coverage across the website for you to get stuck into tomorrow. But we're going to be discussing some of the latest done deals across the EFL and a couple of bits of speculation that are floating around as well. If you're joining us across Facebook, YouTube or Twitter, please do get yourselves in the comments. It'd be great to hear from you with your thoughts on what your club needs to do or what the said club that we're discussing needs to do. We'll look to get those up on the show. But to start with, we're going to start with looking at some of the latest done deals across the EFL. We'll start at Reading then. Baba Rahman has returned to the Royals from Chelsea. He made 29 appearances for Reading last season in the Championship. Marcus, do you think that this is a shrewd pickup for Paul Ince's side?
Definitely. I think when you consider the financial constraints that Reading are dealing with as well, to bring in someone of Baba Rahman's ability, I think is really impressive. In that 29 appearances, it would have been more, but he was playing in the Africa Cup of Nations last season as well. Player that's capable of playing left back or left wing back, with Ince, of course, going with a back three at the moment. I think it was just one assist in those 29 appearances. That's something to improve on. He would have been hoping to contribute a little bit more in the final third as an attack-minded fullback. But no, I'm very impressed with this pickup. It's definitely a problem area of the squad that Reading needed to strengthen. I'm not sure about Nesta Guinness-Walker's capabilities in the Championship. Rahman will go ahead of him in the pecking order. It might be hard pushed to dislodge Junior Hoylett at left wing back the way he's been playing recently, but definitely a great option for Ince to have. Yeah, especially considering that their financial constraints. It's a really impressive bit of business at this late stage.
A little bit of a humbling defeat for Reading last night at Sheffield United, losing 4-0. This is kind of like the perfect pickup on the back of an evening like that, isn't it?
Yeah, Ince was very realistic about the result. I think it was their last 4 games that he listed off and said that they would have taken 9 points from those. So clearly pointing towards the positives. A lot of teams have been found wanting at Bramall Lane already this season at the back end of last season. So I'm not reading too much into that they won't let it take the gloss off what's been a fantastic start. And yeah, a perfect timing to really sort of distract from last night and look forward to the weekend with quite a high profile signing considering some of the clubs that Rahman's played for in the not too distant past.
Let's look at another done deal then. One that I thought slightly went under the radar yesterday, but Rolando Aarons left Huddersfield Town for Motherwell on a season-long loan. Since he arrived at the John Smith Stadium, he's had a torrid time with injuries and he's only made 12 appearances, really failing to establish himself in West Yorkshire. Aarons' contract is up at Huddersfield at the end of the season. There is a 12-month option on that. But given how things have gone for him in Huddersfield, Marcus, this really feels like the end of the road for Aarons at Huddersfield.
Yeah, it's been really sad to see, to be honest. There was quite a lot of hope with him coming down and playing in the EFL after some promising flashes of brilliance at Newcastle, really, in the early stages of his career. But as you say, he's been ravaged by injuries in the last few seasons, even with some loan spells, hasn't been able to rack up the appearances in those temporary spells away from Huddersfield. So no, I can't see them taking up that option to extend the contract as it stands. He's been at Motherwell before. Hopefully that sort of environment that he's been around can help him settle down and get back to his best, because he's sort of crept up to being 26 years old already. And yeah, it gets to the point where I think he needs to start finding a destination and building up some admirers for a club potentially after the Terriers, because yeah, as I said, I can't see him earning an extension on that contract in the summer.
Let's just talk about Huddersfield then. Only just over 24 hours of the window remaining. Players like Rolando Aarons heading out of the club. I think this is potentially Danny Schofield clearing the decks a touch to bring in a few late signings.
Definitely. Huddersfield, although they've sort of player for player had quite an impressive window, some players that definitely have high ceilings and sell-on values. In terms of the right now and the short term and where they are in the league, they do need to strengthen that squad. So yeah, getting some players off the wage bill has got to be a positive, and I think they'll be in for a busy day tomorrow.
Moving up to Sunderland then, Edouard Michut has arrived from PSG. A really interesting deal this, isn't it, Marcus? What are your thoughts on it?
Sorry, just a little hiccup there. It's a really exciting signing. The loan to buy as well makes it even more sort of intriguing, because with Sunderland getting a player from PSG, that doesn't really happen all too often. He hasn't had too much senior action, still just only 19, but a ball-playing midfielder that will be really interesting to see what kind of role Tony Mowbray gives him. Just 90 minutes of Ligue 1 action in his career so far. That came in 6 sub-appearances for PSG. So a very limited sample size to really look at where he's at in terms of making the step up to senior football. Quite a lot of competition for places in his position on Weir's side as well. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. It strikes me as a bit of a project because of his age and the players that Sunderland already have in his position. But no, it'll be really exciting to see how he gets on, because yeah, he does look like a really intriguing ball-playing midfielder and someone who could potentially add a little bit of variety to that midfield contingent.
Yeah, Michut is only 19 years old. You kind of answered my next question there already, Marcus, but do you think he's going to be able to impact the first team at Championship level under Tony Mowbray?
I think from the start, it will probably be mainly appearances from the bench, potentially picking up minutes in cut competitions, and maybe even for the club's development side, just to get him up to speed in English football, because it is a big ask compared to the level that he has been playing at and the style of football. But he is a player that maybe could fit into Mowbray's style of play quite well. He doesn't necessarily like to have big physical players. We saw a player of a smaller stature like Tyrese Dolan really thrive under Tony Mowbray in the last couple of years at Blackburn. A little bit more sort of further back, playing in midfield does Michut, but could potentially take on a good influence from the wise manager. I'm sure PSG had a lot of choices of where they could potentially send in. Of course, there is a chance that he does return to the club. So yeah, to pick Sunderland is an interesting one. But initially, I can see his influence being from the bench.
Birmingham City have completed a deal for Emmanuel Longelo from West Ham. Longelo really highly rated at West Ham. Marcus, do you think he's going to cut it in the Championship with Birmingham?
I think he'll definitely have the chance to. I think this is a position that Birmingham have needed to address. Even last season, when they persisted with a 3 at the back formation without a specialist left wing back, Longelo seems to be a specialist left back, but has played much further forward previously in his youth career at West Ham. So yeah, it's hard to say given his lack of senior action whether he's really going to come in and hit the ground running. But I think he should definitely get the chance to, potentially over someone like Jordan Graham at left wing back under John Eustace. I think that probably makes the Blues a little bit more attractive as a loan destination with someone as manager with the coaching background that John Eustace has. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see to see whether he can get up to speed quickly at Championship level. But I think he should definitely be starting at least pretty regularly for the Blues in their battle against the drop.
Last done deal to discuss then, Brandon Thomas Asante has signed for West Brom from Salford City. This, for me, feels like really quite an exciting deal for West Brom. Some real youthful attacking prowess to add to Steve Bruce's squad. Where do you think he's going to fit in, Marcus?
So I think he's straight up ahead of Kenneth Zahor in the pecking order at the Hawthorns. Definitely not Carlin Grant and Daryl DK yet for me, when DK is fit, of course. But I think he's a player that could be in and around the matchday squads, can play out wide as well, which I think is something that could help Steve Bruce sort of in the rotation and the competition for places that they've already got there. I have my reservations about whether he's ready to slot straight in with the demands that West Brom have in the Championship as well. It's not just a cosy sort of mid-table club in the second tier. West Brom are demanding promotion. They've only won one match of the first 7, so it's a high-pressure environment that he's going to be walking into. I suppose the same could be said with Salford City, the way that they've been chasing promotion in recent years as well. But no, yeah, very exciting one. A 3-year deal as well. At 23 years old, it's nice to see a club with the financial ammunition that the West Bromwich Albion have to be taking a chance on a player from League Two like Thomas Asante. So I can see potentially being an impact sub for the remainder of the first half of the season. But yeah, it'll be very exciting to see how he gets on. He's an edge of your seat player whenever he gets on the ball. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing how he gets on in the Championship.
His goal record in League Two hasn't been, mind blowing. It's not been that he's hitting 20, 30 goals, but it's still quite steady. Do you give him much chance of replicating that in the Championship?
It's a tough one. Sometimes we see players sort of be more prolific at the higher level that they play at when they've got better players around them. So I think that'll be one to wait and see. A lot of his goals have been quite spectacular at times for Salford, and also last season I think he was particularly in the first half having a lot of appearances off the bench and things like that. Was a little bit in and out of the side at times under Gary Bowyer. So maybe sort of the amount of appearances compared to how potent he is in front of goal, there's a bit of a mistranslation there. But because I can't see him maybe playing through the middle straight away at the Baggies, I would expect his goal return maybe to be not as sort of exciting from an early stage. But at 23, he's still got a long way to go in terms of his development. Has come up through non-league. He's almost done it the hard way to earn his Championship move. So yeah, potentially one to wait and see, but definitely one that I think is going to excite Baggies fans.
Next up then, we're just going to discuss some of the rumours and speculation that are floating around across the EFL. We'll start with Victor Gyökeres of Coventry City. A lot of transfer speculation surrounding him already this summer. And there's been reports earlier today that Leeds have half an eye on the Coventry forward as they potentially bring in a striker at Ellen Road. We'll sort of shape this question and this subject a little bit differently, Marcus, and let's just discuss whether you think that in the next 24 hours Coventry can retain their leading striker.
I do think they will keep him, yeah. I think the Swede's attitude has been pretty spot on, even considering that the speculation that's been around him for what feels like ever since the start of the transfer window. I think it's helped Coventry that they're able to get quite a good deal for Dom Hyam this week as well, just helping their financial situation. And with 2 years left on his contract, I think they would be comfortable sort of keeping hold of him, seeing how he goes and hoping that they can build a push for the top 6 this season. If they are way off that in January, maybe they could reconsider. But at least at this late stage in the transfer window, with potentially not much time to source a replacement, even if they do take in quite a lot of money or are offered a lot for him, I don't think that they'll cash in at this stage.
Just given Coventry have hardly played this season owing to the pitch issues at their stadium, do you kind of feel like Gyökeres hasn't been in the shop window like some players have heading into deadline day?
Potentially, it's an interesting argument. If he was going to score goals like he did at Sunderland on the opening weekend, then potentially his stock would have risen further. Yes, it could have actually worked in the Sky Blues' favour that they haven't been playing. He hasn't been able to get out there. It's also more time for O'Hare to recover from his injury as well, with less matches on the clock. So yeah, potentially it could have worked in their favour. Yeah.
Another striker in the Championship that's been in the news, let's say, over the course of the summer has been Callum Robinson at West Brom, seemingly out of favour under Steve Bruce. Cardiff City interested in a deal for the Republic of Ireland international. What are your thoughts on this potential deal and a potential move to Cardiff, first of all, but also Robinson's situation at West Brom, Marcus?
I think it would be a great signing. I think Cardiff are obviously in desperate need for a striker, as Steve Morrison was very sort of reluctant to admit. Keon Tete's injury has sort of exaggerated that need even more, and I don't think Max Watters is really up to it in the Championship, at least at this stage of his career. Robinson, for me, although I would say he's probably not an out-and-out number 9 that can come in and fulfil that role in the Welsh capital, not similar to the likes of Jordan Hugo and Uche Ikpeazu, who they had on loan last season and impressed in the second half of that campaign. I do think it would be a real coup for the Bluebirds. He's a player that, in my mind, should still be a promotion pushing forward in the Championship. And even though he didn't get as many goals or assists as he would have liked last season, I was still impressed with the way he played for the Baggies. Him and Carl and Grant linking up really well at times and causing problems. I think potentially even he could still have a role to play for West Brom as the season goes on, but Steve Bruce doesn't seem to have taken a shine to him as he has to some of the other players in that squad. So yeah, probably an exit on the cards, but I think if Cardiff were the side to beat off Championship opposition and sign him, that could potentially be one of the smartest signings of deadline day.
Of course, Cardiff are the only side that are interested in Callum Robinson. I was a little bit busy earlier, but I'm fairly sure I saw it flash up on Sky Sports news that there was Bristol City and Burnley also interested. But let's just stick with Cardiff. We know about the interest there, and that's been reported quite widely across the day. Cardiff have been really, really busy under Steve Morrison this summer. Do you feel like a signing like Robinson on deadline day would be the icing on the cake for the Bluebirds?
Yeah, I've been really impressed with their business, and to end it in style, which Robinson would be, would definitely catch the imagination of the fan base. I think they've demonstrated how you don't need to spend that much money to completely change pretty much your whole squad and improve it from last season as well. So you have to bring in someone with sort of proven Championship pedigree, able to bring goals and assists and a pretty regular availability. Got a good fitness record as well, Robinson. So yeah, I think this would be an excellent signing and one that Cardiff fans could go into the rest of the season with a lot more confidence. And Steve Morrison will feel a lot more backed in the market as well if they are able to land him.
Let's talk Josh Bowler at Blackpool then. It feels like for the last 2 transfer windows we've been doing nothing but discussing Nottingham Forest's interest in the winger. The latest reports are that Blackpool have rejected a £3.5 million bid from Forest for Bowler. They're holding out for £4 million. Do you think they're going to get it, Marcus?
I do, yeah. I think it feels a little bit inevitable with Forest slowly sort of creeping up with their bids. I know they've spent a lot of money in this transfer window already, but the difference in sort of the TV money and what you can afford when you're in the Premier League compared to the Championship, if it is £500,000, that is the difference between them not signing Bowler and signing him, I think they probably will take that gamble moving into tomorrow. Of course, it puts Blackpool in a tough position and they could change their mind and reject a bid of 4 million, even if they do get that. But yeah, I do think this one is probably one that's going to go through. Clearly a long-time admirer of the player. It's potentially an area of the pitch where Steve Cooper could do with a little bit more depth as well, particularly with there potentially being outgoings tomorrow at the City Ground as well. So yeah, I do think that this is one that will get done, and then the Bowler saga will end with the player leaving on deadline day.
Let's just stick on Blackpool then. I'll kind of throw this one at you. Ian Poveda signed from Leeds over the weekend. Do you think that that's possibly Blackpool getting a body through the door before agreeing to let Bowler go?
It's an interesting one that they've relied quite a lot on loan signings in this transfer window, but I think they would be looking to do some late business as well on top of that if Bowler did go. Poveda coming back off a serious injury last season as well. Theo Corbiano opened his account for the club at the weekend, which is a big positive, but and they do have a lot of bodies, not necessarily Championship proven players in that area of the pitch, but that Appleton does have the options. But I think Blackpool would be wanting to bring in someone else, even if it's not an out-and-out winger, but another attack-minded player, if they do accept a bid for Bowler.
Let's get stuck into a Football League World exclusive from this morning. Then Birmingham and Wigan considering late moves for Kabongo Tshimanga from Chesterfield. Tshimanga has been prolific in the National League. He's got 2 in 4 this season and he scored 24 in 27, I think I'm right in saying, last year. It's a big step up from the National League into the Championship. Thoughts on him stepping up what would be 3 levels?
It would be something of a project, I think, for whoever signs him. It will take quite a lot of money considering the financial security and where Chesterfield rank in the National League. Obviously trying to compete with Wrexham for that one automatic spot this season. It's a tough one, really. 3 leagues is an enormous jump. We've seen it done before. There's plenty of players that have shown that it is possible. At 24 years old, he's sort of been in that environment and fallen away previously in his career. At Birmingham, I think he'd get plenty of opportunities. I'm not so sure elsewhere. I think it's Wigan, the other team linked. They've got plenty of options in the final third. But I think at Birmingham, with the type of influences around him, players with the experience of Jutkiewicz, Troy Deeney, even Scott Hogan in the second tier as well, that could be maybe an ideal destination for him. And though I dread to say it, potentially a club where he could be getting action in League One next season as well to sort of aid that transition up to the Football League. It would be a big ask, but I think an exciting one for Blues fans if they are able to get it over the line.
Let's talk about the 2 clubs in question then, Birmingham and Wigan, and sort of take the player out of the question then. Looking to potentially bring a striker in the next 24 hours. Birmingham, I think I'm right in saying, have scored 4 goals this season and Wigan have got 5. Do you think that both of these are in need of a little bit of firepower heading into September and beyond?
It's a difficult one in terms of Wigan because not dissimilar for Blackpool. I think they have the bodies and the depth in that position. It's just whether the players and the quality of them is up for it and is up to the test of battling to stay in the Championship. They do have a lot of choice for Richardson with the likes of Will Keane, Lang, McGuinness, Stephen Humphreys, Charlie White, all still at the club. So if Tshimanga did come in, that would probably spell the end for 1 or 2 of those players potentially to even go out the door. But in terms of Birmingham, I think he walked straight into the team pretty much. I haven't been convinced with their forward line for a while. I think Jutkiewicz is coming towards the end. He's not able to have the same influence on games that he did previously. Troy Deeney's been something of a shadow of his prime years. I mean, we maybe shouldn't have expected just as much from him when he signed for Birmingham last season, but there's definitely a gap in that Birmingham team that needs to be filled if they are to make this season, well, even as comfortable as it was for them last season, with them still towards the bottom end. So yeah, I think Birmingham should be the desired destination for Tshimanga if he is to choose between those 2.
Another piece of Birmingham City transfer news then. Football League World understands that Odin Bailey is heading out of the club and heading to Salford. We'll angle this from a Salford perspective. This looks like another decent deal for the ambitious League 2 side, doesn't it?
Yeah, an exciting move. So much time still ahead of him in his career at just 22, and has had gained some valuable experience in the loan system in recent years. Obviously, we're still sort of looking to see what Neil's got as a manager in the senior game, but his experience working with the Manchester United youth ranks should sort of give Blues more confidence that they're sending, or even if he does move on a permanent transfer, to move into good hands and a club where he's going to be able to develop and kick on in his career. Played quite a lot of games in Scottish Premiership last season for Livingston. Not ideal attacking output, which he hasn't really caught the eye in any of his loan spells away from Birmingham. It does look like a player who's ready to be competing towards the top end of League 2, and that definitely fits in line with Salford's ambitions this season.
That concludes our look at some of the done deals and transfer rumours floating around at the minute. The window is very fast paced. It's got to say at this moment in time, everything's changing, and we'll be right across it all tomorrow on the website. Plenty of done deals to be done, plenty of speculation to come and go, I'm sure. So if you want the latest, please do head over to footballleagueworld.co.uk. There will be so much content on there tomorrow for you to get your teeth stuck into. We'll be covering all clubs as well. So please do check it out on there, and we'll see you again soon.